ServiceNow user training. Today's training will be focused on working with dashboards and reports. This is actually a revamp of the previous brown bag we had on working with dashboards and reports. This is more of a deep dive. We have more topic objectives that we're going to discuss. So this is actually going to be a really great training, and actually extended the session to 90 minutes to give us time to get a overview of dashboards and reports. This is hosted by the Tech Enablement Team. My name is Kiara Henderson. I'm the project coordinator of Tech Enablement Team and the facilitator of the ServiceNow Brown Bag Session series. Um, Today's agenda will be talking about working with reports and dashboards. Today's session will be conducted by New Rocket. His name is Joseph, and he will be facilitating the training today. We will go over the learning objectives and best practices. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Also, I will be doing polls throughout the session. I'll interrupt to see where you guys are at when it comes to learning about the topics. I'll ask questions within the poll. We'll have a brief session to go over the results of the poll, and then we'll continue with the session. So we're going to do that like at least twice throughout the session, not too many, just about a few questions that we'll have that we'll put as a poll, and you'll see it in the screen. And then we'll have a brown bag survey at the end. If anyone has any questions throughout the session, please ask them in the chat. I will be filtering questions there. And if there's any questions that I cannot answer, we will follow up with the questions to those, the answers to those questions. Okay. So with that being said, I want to pass it off to the conductor of the facilitation of the training today, and his name is Joseph with New Rocket. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the training. Joseph, you can take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Kiara. So everybody, hopefully everybody can see my screen and they can hear me well. My name is Joseph Senfleben. I'm one of the training managers at New Rocket, and today's training session is working with dashboards and reports. The agenda for the training session today includes the following. Actually, there we go. We will start with an overview of dashboards. From this overview, I will introduce all of the options that are available to a typical user, an ITIL user that is. We will view existing dashboards. From there, we will create a dashboard, manage that dashboard, and then share that dashboard so that you can see the incremental process required to not only create and manage, but share any dashboards that are created. From there, we'll segue into reports. With regard to reports, I will touch on the options that are available to all report users, and that includes viewing or modifying existing reports that are out of the box. After this slide, I will actually show you a list of the report user roles that exist in ServiceNow so that you can see what requirements there are in the system, and whether the user role that you've been provided is sufficient for you to do what you need to as it relates to the reports console. We won't touch necessarily on what roles do you have. That's in the PowerPoint slide deck, but I will show you what the admin role features include. One of those features includes being able to save a filter as a data source. After we're done with reports, we will briefly discuss how you can create reports from a record list. I'll touch on how to sort and filter those items into a report. And also then when we get back to the reports console, we'll touch on all of those items that you see on the list. So that includes discussing what source types are available, what types of reports you can create. When we create this report, we will go over setting the conditions, saving it, discuss buttons that appear on the report console, and that includes things like exporting the report, what formats are available. And then we will touch briefly on admin features and functionality, which includes scheduling and publishing reports. So here's the list of roles that are available with regard to reports. Everyone on this call should have, at a minimum, the report user role. The report user role will allow individuals to create personal reports and view all reports that have been shared with them. These reports that are out of the box cannot be shared, edited, or deleted. So you only have the ability to create a report for yourself, and that report and only that report can be deleted by you. If you have extended roles, such as the publisher role, that means you can actually publish a report that you've created. Once a report is published, it provides you a public link that you can send to other users, and that will link them directly to that report. The report scheduler allows individuals to schedule reports. There is an email that would be generated on a regular frequency that could be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever the case may be. But anybody that is listed in that email will receive a notification that the report is available. And so when we're done with all of the topics for today's training session, I will log in as an administrator so that I can show you both publisher and scheduler permissions and what they look like. The report administrator is the individual that can access any and all reports in the system. They have the capability of deleting reports that are no longer required. They can share any reports that they have access to, and they can publish those. So just keep in mind that the report administrator is more or less the gatekeeper for everything that's found in the report console. Here's an example of some of the features that an admin does have. So you won't initially see this when I cover report management. We cannot delete reports that we did not individually create, but an administrator can delete any and all reports. Administrators also have the ability to schedule, and they have the ability to publish. A further feature available to the administrator is the capability of saving a specific condition that was created for a report as a data source, which means future reports that are created can leverage your starting point or your data source for their report. And I'll touch on that a little bit more when we get into reports. So with that, I will go ahead and start in the ServiceNow instance. Now I'm in the test environment, just so you're aware. So there's going to be some test data in the system. For the purposes of training today, I am logged in as an individual named test user, and test user will more or less mimic all of the capabilities that everybody on this call has at a minimum. When you are in the system, the very first thing you will see when you log in generally is a page that looks like this. You may see the Go to Dashboards overview. And what that means is that you've not logged in before, there's nothing for you to see. So you can click on Go to Dashboards overview, which will take you to the dashboards page. The dashboards page consists of 4 tabs. We have recent, owned by me, shared with me, and all. The all tab is the default view. And what this view does is it shows you a list of all of the dashboards that you have access to. Dashboards are broken down on cards with the following information: the name of the dashboard, the group that this dashboard exists in, who owns the dashboard, and what capability is required to see the dashboard. So you will see all these different dashboards for this particular user available. The shared with me the shared with me tab, I should say, will display a list of all of the dashboards that have been shared with me as an individual or as an individual with specific roles or permissions. Owned by me will display a list of dashboards that I've created. And as you can see, I haven't created any dashboards yet. Recent will display all of the recently accessed dashboards. So essentially, if I go back to all and pick the ITIL dashboard as an example. What we see here is a dashboard that contains a number of what we call widgets or cards. These widgets consist of different types of reports or list views, and they're very interactive. So I can click on a number in this example, and it takes me to a filtered list with those results. If I click on the logo in the upper left-hand corner, it will always take me back to my home. And now, instead of seeing that initial page, I see the dashboard that I've accessed. To return to the view that we were in before, we would click on this little dashboards overview button. And now we see under recent the dashboard that I've accessed. So whenever you access dashboards, they'll start appearing in your recent list. We'll go back to all for a moment so I could demonstrate a couple of other features on the dashboards page. Under group filter, you will see that we can sort our dashboards by group. Now recall I'd mentioned that the item that's in the bubble is the group. So other is a group. CMDB dashboard is a group. If I click on the drop down here, we will see other as an option, and that will show me only the dashboards that have other listed as a group. There may be some dashboards that don't have a group filter, and so they won't appear unless you pick all groups. Also, on the far right-hand side, we have search dashboard. So you can type in a word or a phrase to search for the appropriate dashboard. I recommend not using the word dashboard because that'll bring up 90% of the dashboards on the screen. So if I type in the word incident, for example, you'll see that we have two dashboards that appear with incident in the name. And then we also have incident as a group. So it searches both group name and title of the dashboard. So from this point, we have the capability of creating our own dashboard. Anybody that sees the Create a Dashboard button in the upper right-hand corner has the capability of creating a dashboard. So when I click on that button, what we're going to see is a very basic form, dashboard, new record. Also, another thing to note is wherever you are in the system, there's a little bubble in the middle that tells you exactly where you are. So not only does it say it in this little corner here, it says it right up at the top, dashboard, new record. Whenever you see an asterisk to the left of a field name, that means that that field is required, and you have to populate that information before you can move forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a test or a training dashboard. To do that, we need to have initially an idea of what we're intending to cover in that dashboard. And overall, the goal here is I'm going to create a dashboard that will include records related to universal requests, incidents, and changes. So to begin, I will start by naming my dashboard training dash inc urchg. So that covers, and actually I probably won't use the commas there. Order is useful if you're going to create a number of dashboards and you want it to appear in a certain order on the list. If you wanted to restrict your dashboard to specific roles, you can click on this pencil and then you can go through the list of roles, and only the individuals who have these roles will be able to access the dashboard. I'll leave that blank so that it's available to everyone. We want to confirm that the active button is checked, which means that this dashboard is active and available after we save it. On the bottom, we have a button called Submit. It also exists in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking on this will save the dashboard. And just as a hint, there's nothing there yet. All we have is a name. So what I do is I go to View Dashboard instead under Related Links. What happens is we see our dashboard, and there's absolutely nothing here, but this is where we're going to construct the contents or provide the contents for the dashboard. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have training-inc URCHG. It repeats that information right here. So that's where we are. We have the ability to go back to the dashboard's overview if we needed to. We also have a button that we could change to another dashboard. Where we're going to focus our attention are on these three buttons right here. The third button is a configuration option. This tells you what format you want to use for your dashboard. So you could have 9 squares, 3 long rectangles, 4 equal size squares. But right now we're going to stick with essentially it's going to be something resembling this view where our records will appear layered on top of each other. We can change the background color for our dashboard. Right now it's white, so we can put any records in here, any reports, any filters, and the background will be white. We could change that to be any color you want. The Create tab is an option that will allow us to create multiple tabs on the dashboard, and I'll actually cover that a little bit later. There's 2 ways to do this, by the way. The first button, and I'm skipping number 2 because that's sharing. We won't share this dashboard until we're done creating it. So the widget button takes us to the Add Widgets panel. The categories that we have available to us are found on this dropdown. So we have favorites, reports, interactive filters, content blocks, and so on down the line. As you scroll down, you'll see that there are additional options such as world clocks, catalogs, text search, and filters. If you pick something like filters, then you will see a list of applications within ServiceNow that you can choose from. Under Incident, when we click on that, we'll see that there are several options to choose from. If I pick one of these, it gives me a preview of the information that will appear on the dashboard. If I'm happy with that, I can click Add, and I now have one table or one filter on my dashboard. Right now it shows that it's going to show all open incidents where the caller is test user. So we can always modify some of this information a little bit later, but really what I'm doing is showing you how we can add content to the dashboard. Clicking this little back arrow will take us back to our list where we can search for different filters to add to the list. Whenever you do add a widget, it will always go to the top of the list. If you wanted to change the order with the widget panel active, you will see these buttons appear. So this first button will allow you to increase or decrease the height of this report or list, so I can go up or down if I needed to. I have a refresh button, so I can refresh my widget at any time. I have an edit button, which will allow me to edit border, header, title, color, and so on. And then I have an X, which will allow me to remove this if I don't want to see it anymore. If I wanted to reorder, all I have to do is hover over the top bar and exchange places. When I'm done with the widgets, all I need to do is click on the X, and now I have essentially a dashboard that I've created. Other options can actually be performed using this little button here on the far left-hand side. And this is where I'd mentioned there's another way to add tabs, and that is under the ServiceNow calls this a hamburger button, but I can click Create Tab. Are there any questions on what I've covered up to this point?
Not any questions, Joseph, but we do have a recommendation just to slow it down so that people can follow along with you. Because
Okay.
I think some users are kind of following along with you doing this walkthrough. So
Oh, okay, sure, I can do that. All right. So one of the things that I mentioned I wanted to do is to show you how you can add multiple tabs. So we can pick either the configuration button where we see create tab, or we can click on the hamburger button and pick create tab. Either one works. The reason that we would use to add additional tabs could be because we want to separate the contents of our dashboard. Since I titled this incident universal request and change, I may want to have a tab specific to incidents, a tab specific to universal requests, and a tab specific to change. So to add a tab, I'm going to click Create Tab, and I'm going to click it again. So I've clicked it twice. I now have 3 tabs. When you hover over the tab, you'll see this little pencil and the trash bin. The trash is used if you added too many tabs. The pencil, on the other hand, will allow you to rename your tab. And in this example, I'm going to call it change. And I'm going to remove the rest of the information there. Now I'm going to go to the second tab, and I will refer to this one as universal request. Let me click on the pencil here. The mouse doesn't like moving there. Okay. And now the first tab. Right, so now I have renamed all 3 tabs. So I'll repeat the process for change so that I can show you again a little bit more slowly, how to add widgets. So with the change tab active, when I click on the add widgets button and click on the back arrow so that I'm where I need to be, add widgets, I have a widget category. And because I have filters listed, I can search through each of the applicable applications within ServiceNow. By clicking on Change Request, it gives me a list of filters available within Change. So I can scroll through each of these, or I can pick another item. But from here, I could type in the word or phrase and search for a specific filter. Okay. So let's see if there's anything here that I can pick. We'll say active. So I'm just going to pick active cases. That's all cases that are not closed or canceled. After looking at the preview, clicking add will add it to the list. I'm going to expand the size of this report or this list. And when I'm done, clicking this arrow will take me back to my list. Clicking back one more time will take me to the add widgets home. All right. So now that I've created my dashboard and I've managed it by providing widgets to the dashboard itself, the last option that I have is to click sharing. When I click on sharing, what happens is it allows me to share this dashboard with any individuals, so either groups or users. If I click on add to groups or users, I can put in a group name, or I can put in the name of an individual. So when I typed in Kiara's name, highlighting it here will add it to the list. So she is now going to receive an invitation for this dashboard. I can put in the name of a group, and Kiara, if you happen to have a group name that you would like me to use, I'll put it in here.
Tech enablement team.
Could you repeat that?
Tech enablement.
Heck.
TEC8. Yep. Enablement E. Yep.
Okay. Now, we can send an email invitation. We don't have to, but if we do, we would probably want to put a message in here. And then we define the recipient's capabilities within the dashboard. By default, they can view the dashboard, which means they cannot modify the dashboard that I've created. They're simply capable of viewing the information on this dashboard. If I wanted to provide them edit rights, then I would specify can edit, which means they can change this dashboard. So I'm not going to allow anyone to modify it, so I'm just going to simply keep the can view option for all recipients. When I click share, both the group and the individual will receive a notification if I sent an email, and if I did not, they would at least see this dashboard now appear on the shared with me list. And if you'd like, I can confirm that that actually worked by impersonating Kiara. And there's the dashboard. So on selection, the training incident tab contains information. I didn't add anything to universal request, but I did add a filter for training. If I click on the little hamburger button, you'll see there's no delete option on the screen whatsoever. All right. Any questions on what I've covered in its entirety as it relates to dashboards, creating dashboards and managing or sharing those dashboards?
So far in the chat, Joseph, I see no questions, but I'm not sure if anyone have any questions. They can definitely speak out. But do we have time to do a poll on
We
what we've
do.
learned so far? Okay,
We do.
cool. All right, everyone, I want to put a couple polls in the chat. You'll see it on your screen. So just to kind of talk about what we covered so far, and we're going to share the results after everyone has responded. And I think it's like 5 questions. So let me know if you guys see the questions in the chat. So it should be a Poly reports and dashboards poll, and you can start the quiz. And they're just going to ask some questions about the dashboards and what we learned and what Joseph just covered. And when you press next and you press submit, then we can go over the results. So we're going to do that for the next 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone. So I have completed the quiz. Let me see what the responses are. Is everyone seeing the polls in the chat? Okay, I see it now. All right. All right, Joseph. Once we can continue on the session. We'll have everyone to complete the poll throughout the session, and we'll do the results at the end of the training.
Okay, so I don't get to see the results. It's okay.
I don't even. I'm the only one who voted so far. I
Oh,
haven't seen
okay.
anyone else.
Okay. All right, I can continue. So we're going to move on to reports. Now, before I do that, I wanted to explain why I started with dashboards. When you create a report, you do have the capability of not only saving this report, but you can add it to a dashboard so long as you've created the dashboard. So if you have access to the report and you have access to the dashboard, you can save or add your report to the dashboard. And my intention is to add a report to the Universal Request tab. So I figured it makes sense to show you how to create and manage your dashboard first before going into reports. So with that said, the way we would access reports is we would go to all, and I'm going to type in the word report, and you'll see a list of matches. As a recommendation, I would suggest you add view run as a favorite. When you click on that star, you now have the ability to access the report's view run option directly from the favorites tab. So it's quick and easy access. When I click on view run, it takes me to the reports console. And the reports console consists of 4 tabs. The first tab by default that appears is my reports. If you've not created any reports in the past, this is the screen you'll see. It shows you the types of reports that you can create, and you can click on the various types. We'll discuss the types a little bit later. And then there's an option for more, which shows the remaining report types. The one that's most frequently used is the list. So that's what we're actually going to create today. But I will show you an example of different types in just a moment. Other than my reports, we have group reports. There are no group reports. Reports that are globally available appear on this list. And then we have all, which is a combination of global, group, and my reports. If you wanted to quickly access certain reports on a regular basis, you can make them a favorite. There's a star that appears to the left of the type and to the right of the pencil. So you can click on a star, which will make this report um, easily accessible. So I'm just going to click on a couple of these. And when you want to access your favorites, all you have to do is click on the star at the top, which will now open up this little panel. It says favorites filtering is on. So you will only see the reports that you favorited. If you wanted to remove the favorites list, you can either click on the star at the top, or you can click on the X in the top. Just like we were able to search for dashboards, we have the capability of searching for reports in the system. Before I do that, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and show you that the system currently, at least this system, has 972 reports. What you may also find is that there may be some security constraints that prohibit you from viewing certain reports. So from the first 20 reports on the list, 10 of them are hidden by security constraints. When I click on next, I see another list. In this example, I have 11 with 9 that are blocked. So if there are constraints added to a report, you simply won't be able to see them. Okay, so just be aware of that. That's not anything out of the ordinary. I'm presenting the class, and my persona has that same restriction applied. The way you can read the list is if there's a pencil on the left-hand side, that means that you have the ability to edit a report. But um, don't assume that that means that you can overwrite a report. So if we have a report called active change requests and we click on this pencil, it doesn't mean we're going to overwrite what we see here. It simply means we're using this as a starting point and we're going to create another report. And I'll show you what I mean in just a little bit. The second button we've talked about, that's how you can designate an item as a favorite. The third column shows the type of report that we're running. So when you hover over the little icon, it'll tell you the type. This is a list. This one's a bar. This one is a single score, so it's just a number. And this one is a pivot table. So you can hover over all of these to see the different types of reports. Next, we have our title. So this is the name of the report, the table that the report comes from, who created the report. If there's no name there, that means that it's an out-of-the-box report. And then when was it last modified? So you can sort by any of these columns if you wanted. Generally, we sort by the title. We can search for any report. I was alluding to that a minute ago. We'll go back to that. Under search, if you type in a word or phrase, and I'll type in the word universal to see if anything comes up, there should be 3 sets of results, and more often than not, there will be. The first one is the report title contains, and that's the word that you've entered. The second one is the report. The report has, it will list the first 5 reports with that name or with the word in the name. So there's only 2 reports with it, so it only shows 2. But typically, if I were to type incident or change, there would be 5 on the list. And then finally, we have table. Do you want to restrict your list to the universal request table? So if I pick report title contains, then I have universal. Any report that has the word universal in it will appear. I can further narrow my search by typing in another word. And if I type in, let's say, the word group, we see group title contains group, report, or table. Now, if you pick table, then you won't get any results because it's looking for reports that have the title that contains or you may actually get some, but if you have one table here and you pick another table, you will get no results. So just be aware you cannot have 2 tables on your list. Because I have a title option, I can pick another title option, and now I'm narrowed down to those 2 results. So just be careful when you do searches because you may put yourself in a corner where you have no results. You can remove the results and then start over. On the far right-hand side, we have the Create a Report button. If you see that, that means you have the ability to create a report. Before we do that, let's go ahead and pick one of the reports, specifically active change requests, to review what happens when you access a report. In this example, the report takes us to this view where we have the ability to edit the report. There's 4 tabs that appear. By default, it appears under Configure. The title of the report appears at the top, and this particular report is grouped. So it's grouped by active. There are 246 changes that are not active and 113 that are. You can click on this little arrow and it will show you the list of results. And as with all reports, there are links available. So when you click on the record locator, it'll take you to that ticket. We do have the ability to edit this report so we can further narrow our search. And in this case, what I may do is remove the grouping and say none. And when I do that and click the run button, it refreshes the screen to show that there's no more grouping available. I can also click on the filter, and I can add conditions if I wanted to. And just to prove that I cannot overwrite this report, there's a little button here, and it doesn't say save. If you're an administrator, there would be a button that said save and then the drop down. In my case, because I can't overwrite an out-of-the-box report, I only have these two options, insert and stay. The insert and stay option will allow me to copy this report. So it's going to be a copy, not an overwrite. If I click insert, it means it's going to insert a copy of the report and take me to the previous page. So there's no danger of overwriting a report accidentally. The other buttons that we see on the screen include report info. So you can add content to the description for this report. So an individual that is looking at active change requests can see what the description for that report is. We also have a share button, and the sharing button will allow us to add this report to the dashboard, to a dashboard that we have access to, or we can export this to PDF. I'll show you these features when we create our own report. So to continue, I'm going to click back. And because I did make some changes, it's asking me if I want to discard the changes and continue. You'll notice there is no save because I can't overwrite the original. And now I'm back where I started. Before I create a report from scratch, I wanted to see if anybody has any questions on what I've covered up to this point.
Yes, so Ginger has a question. Can we create reports and then select those to be shared on a dashboard?
Only if you've created the dashboard, but the answer is yes. You have to be the owner of the dashboard to do that, unless you are a report admin or a system admin, at which point you can share a report that you've created with any dashboard that you have access to.
Perfect. I hope that answers your question, Ginger. Here's a follow-up. How do we get permissions to share dashboards? Um, that has to be a request submitted in OctoHelp, correct? Like that has to be a permission set, Joseph.
Not for dashboards, but for reports, yes.
Okay.
You can. I shared the dashboard that I created with you and a group, if you recall, and I don't have any special permissions. But for reports, I definitely have to have report admin permissions, or at the very least, the I think it is at report admin to be able to share.
Got it. So to answer your question, Ginger, you don't have to have permissions to share a dashboard to a group. Okay. Give me the thumbs up if we answered your question. Joseph, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a report involving the universal request table. So to create a report, I'm going to click create a report, and I'm taken to the create a report page. So the very first thing we see is the data tab is active. The data tab is where we would define the report name, the source of the information, and then based on the source selected, we have to pick that value. So my report name is going to be training dash universal requests, and I'm just putting a general name here because I can edit it at any time throughout the process. So at least we have a starting point. Because we have a red asterisk to the left of each of these three, I have to populate all of the information before I can continue. The two types of sources that I have available as a typical user is data source and table. Data source can be used to select essentially a filter. So if I pick incidents.closed, what it's going to do is it's going to provide a list of closed incidents. So that's a filter. Resolved incidents would appear for incidents.resolved. I can type in words or phrases to search for data sources. So it's a predefined filter. On the other hand, if I picked table, then it's looking for a table within the system. So you can type in incident and it will show you a list of matches. Incident would be the table for an incident report. For change, you could type in change request and you'll see change request as the table. But what we're going to do is create a report on universal request. So I'm going to type in the word universal and see if we have any matches. So we have incidents and universal requests. And we can scroll down to see if that is our best match. And we actually have universal request right here. So I can pick that option if I wanted. Now, immediately what happens, because I've satisfied the 3 requirements, I have a next button down at the bottom, which means I can go to the next step, which is type. Also, because we picked a table with no filter, it automatically is going to show all records. At any point, I can either click run to run the filter or the report, or I can click next, which takes me to the next tab, which will automatically run the report for me. Type will allow me to pick what kind of report I want to generate. I have bars, so these are the bar charts, pies and donuts, time series, and you can hover over this and it shows you a brief explanation of what the types are. Multidimensional, scores, other is where we would find list, which is the default view. So we'll keep list as our option. Because it has a selected option predefined, the next button was automatically available for us. When we click on configure, this is where we can modify the view. Right now, by default, we have a series of columns on display. I can click on choose columns and I can review and change some of these records, or I'm sorry, some of these columns if I wanted to. I could even change the order. So for primary ticket, I can move that right behind number. If I wanted to move opened down below and put short description next, I can do that. I can also add additional columns. And if you notice, there are some fields that are in black that when I highlight it, all I have to do is click on this arrow to move it to the selected list. On the other hand, there are some fields that are green with a plus. Those signify relationships to other tables. So with assignment group, there's an actual assignment group table on or in the system. That little plus means that we can access related fields to that table. So you could pick the assignment group manager name, and it will show the name of the manager for that assignment group. ServiceNow refers to this as dot walking. So there's a dot relationship. Here's the field that's related to a table. And then there's a relational field in that table that's related to another field and so on. So we can look to see what this will actually do as a result. If I wanted to remove something, I can highlight it and I can just click on the back arrow. When I click OK, we should now have an updated version of the report when I click run. So here's the assignment group field that we had before, and here's the manager now. So we could see the manager for each of these groups. We also see the change in order of columns because I moved primary ticket all the way over to the left after the number column. and I moved opened or open by, I don't remember which, changed the order of those. Now, besides selecting columns, I can pick whether I want to group the records, and by default, it's not grouped at all, so they're all listed individually. If I click on this little drop down, it'll show me that I can group them by any field on the form. If I wanted to group it by assignment group, I can do so. If I wanted to group it by state, I can scroll through and locate state, or I could type in the word and select from the list of matches. When I click run again, it'll now be grouped by state. And then I can expand all of them so they're all divided by state. Or I can just say I'm interested in looking at the canceled records. If I don't want to group anything on the report, all I have to do is click back on the group by and select none. Clicking run will update it. Finally, we have style. Under style, we can pick certain aesthetics for the report. So chart title size, chart title color, horizontal alignment, and so on. Generally, I don't do anything as it relates to the style option. Finally, we have the ability to modify our filter. So we can filter the records that we expect to see for this report. Now, I gave it a general title because I wasn't sure what I'm going to search for just yet. But I think having looked at this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for universal requests that have a specific priority and is in a specific state. So to do that, I would click on the filter, and then I have my conditions panel. There's 3 columns that appear on the screen. The first column is for the field name. The second is for operator. The third is the result. And then we can add an and or an or to the conditions list. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to specify that the state of the records, and so now I have my operator. You'll see there's a lot of them to choose from: is not, is one of, is not one of, is, and so on down the line. If I wanted to pick multiple states, I can say is one of, and then I can pick the options that I want. So I'm going to say is, using the control button to remove options. I'm going to specify is in progress or awaiting response. And the other condition that must be met is the priority is not low, or planning, I should say. With that done, I can click run, close this little button, and now my results will show the state is either in progress or awaiting response. So all of these are in progress. And if I scroll down, I may not have any that are awaiting. And then the priority is not 5 planning. So we don't have any 5s anywhere on the list. If we're happy with this result, we can go ahead and save this because we've created this report, or we can further add conditions to this. Another condition I may want to use is and I'm going to show you an option for dynamic conditions. I'll say assignment group is dynamic. And what'll happen is it opens up an option on the last column. One of my groups is the choice. So it will only display records for any of the groups that I'm a member of. And this is an important option, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. So when I'm done, I would click run. Hopefully there's some results in here. There aren't, because there aren't any tickets associated to that, but I'll leave it at that for now. So we've created a report that has specific conditions, and I'll explain the is dynamic feature in just a moment. So with this created, I'm going to change the title to my groups universal, let's see, universal requests in progress, or waiting response. So I can click save, which means that this report will be created. I can confirm that by clicking on this little arrow here, going to my reports, and I now have a report on the list. Before I go any further, I wanted to stop to see if anybody has any questions.
The question chat is all clear right now.
Hopefully that's good.
But it is. Let me make sure. Oh, yeah, one from David. Thank you. For source type, what is the difference between table and data source?
I was going to get to that, so
All
I
right.
will touch on that. I left it for a little bit later because I wanted to show the basics of creating a report, but I will explain it.
Okay, cool.
All right, so I'm going to go back to my report. I can click on the pencil or I can click on the title. And let's say that I want to share this report. So clicking on the share button will only allow me to either add to a dashboard or export to PDF. So if I click add to dashboard, you'll find that it only allows me to add it to one dashboard, and that's the dashboard that I've created. Okay. Now the tab, because I have 3 tabs on that dashboard, it allows me to pick which tab I want to add this this report to. So I'm going to select Training Universal Request. And when I click add, it's going to take me to the dashboard. And now that report that I've just created is part of this dashboard. And essentially, the report that I've created, besides being in this dashboard, will be on this tab for Kiara and the other group that I saved or shared this dashboard to, if they have access to that report. So there's a lesson in there somewhere, and that is when you create a report and you restrict it to very specific users, you add it to a dashboard that everyone has access to. Only the people that have access to that report will actually see the report on the dashboard. So it doesn't circumvent any security rules. As an example, I create a report for HR and it's very restricted, but I add it to a dashboard that everyone has access to. Well, there are a lot of people that will see empty space where that report is supposed to be because they don't have access to that report. So you want to make sure that the reports and the dashboards that you're merging have the same capabilities in terms of an audience. Okay. So now that I've created a report and added it to the dashboard, I'm going to go back to reports and we're going to cover the other option, which is data source. So I'm going to go to create a report, and the report name in this case will be, let's say, incidents, actually, training dash incidents with high priority. Okay, so rather than going with a table, which would be the incident table, I'm going to pick a data source. And a data source is essentially a filter. So I have a number of filters to choose from. And if I wanted to pick only those that involve incident, I would type in incident on my search, and we have our list of options available here. So I'm going to pick incidents.open as my filter. What happens is the data source represents a condition that's predefined, and that predefined condition is active is true. So we're not going to see closed incidents. We're not going to see canceled incidents. We'll only see incidents that are new, in progress, waiting, or on hold, whatever the states are. Now, I still have a condition builder, but it's a condition that is going to be added on top of what we see here. So your data source is a predefined condition. And hopefully that answers the question for what is a data source.
I'm gonna also put something in the chat too to
Okay.
to help Davis. So I'm gonna put something in the chat for you, Davis.
All right. So now that I've created this report using a predefined filter, I'm going to go through the same steps that I did previously, which is I'm going to cover the type of report. And what I'll do is I'll pick the bar chart in this case. So we'll have a bar instead of a list. I'm going to go to configure, and I'm going to group by state. When I go next, we have our table, and it shows in progress, new, and on hold. But it's showing all reports as long as they're, or all incidents as long as they're active. So I still need to add a condition, and that condition was with high priority or higher. So I'm going to click on this little filter. I'm going to choose priority is one of, and it's going to be critical or high. When I click run, we now see these results. I can confirm whether this worked or not by clicking on new, for example, and it should show. I don't see that field on the form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the priority column. And it does work. So all of these records are either high or critical priority. Since I didn't save it, I lost my work, just so you know. So be careful when you do check.
Best practices, guys. Best practices right here.
Yeah. I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but I just simply forgot to save it. So let's go to incident again. Okay. Our chart. And we were going to do it by assignment group. Oh, no, it wasn't assignment group. It was state. All right, so now I'm going to save this before I lose it. And so now what we've done is we still have our filter. So this is where I would put in that filter with the priority. And because I made changes, I'm going to click Save again. And so we have our report. At this point, I have the ability to update my report. I can even create a copy of the report and go back to where I came from, or I can go and insert and stay. So create a copy of the report and stay here and continue modifying it. Because I created the report, I have this little trash can, which allows me to destroy or delete the report. And I have my sharing button again to add to a dashboard that I've created and put it in a tab that I want it to appear in. So clicking add here will now show the change tab has 2 widgets. Now, are there any questions on the differences between using a table or using a data source when creating a report?
Think so, but I did put some information in the chat for Davis, explanation of the difference between these tools and how to best use them. So hopefully that helps. We do have a question. What does state mean regarding the filters?
Okay, so state is where in the life cycle a record is. When you create an incident, the state is new. When an incident is assigned to an individual, it progresses to in progress. So those are states. When the incident is resolved or closed, those are the states that the incident is in. So it's another term, depending on old systems that I've used, is status. So it could be the status of the ticket. It's in progress or it's on hold. But ServiceNow uses the term state.
Yeah, I put that in the chat because it kind of reminds me of status when it comes to like logistic terms and how we use the language. Status is kind of what you would think about when you think about state, the
Hmm.
progression of where that actual progression of that actual ticket is and the where it is. That will be the kind of like a status. So hopefully that answers your question, Angela.
Okay. So let me go through a couple of the other topics that we have, and that includes the using or generating reports from a list. All right. So when we go to the all option, let's say, and we can type in, I'll do incident for this. You will see a list of matches. So we have incidents, create new, assigned to me, open, open, unassigned, resolved, and all. The assigned to me, open, open, unassigned, resolved, and all are filters or lists. When I click open unassigned, we see a list of results. There are 1,087 incidents. Now, from this list, I can modify the results by filtering out various records. I can use the little filter icon at the top, or I can actually dig in within the fields that are on display on the table, or the list view. Let's say, for example, I'm interested in looking at results for, let's say, OctoHelp's dispatch. So hovering over this field, when I right click, you'll see a list of options, show matching or filter out. If I select show matching, it's only going to show OctoHelp's dispatch for all of the assignment group results. If I say filter out, it'll show everything except OctoHelp's dispatch. So I'm going to pick show matching, and now we're down to 40 records. From here, I can then specify other filters. I could say that I'm only interested in incidents that have a specific state, but this is enough for this part of the demonstration. So let's say now that I want to run a report based on this list. What I would do is I would pick the column that I want to run the report against. And when I click on that button there, you'll see that I can sort, I can show visual task board, I can group. Well, that wouldn't really be helpful because they're all the same group, but I can pick a bar chart or a pie chart. I can even export this, and I can export any list to an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV file, JSON file, or PDF. And under PDF, I can specify portrait, landscape, which is just the list, or detailed portrait and detailed landscape, which would be the entire list of records plus every one of those records opened up individually. So rather than a page and a half or 2-page report that shows just the ticket numbers, using detailed would expand every one of them, and it could be a 200-page report when all is said and done. We're going to focus on one of these two options here. If I pick a bar chart, for example, it's going to take me to the report console, and it's going to show me the results right here. So it shows the one group, and it's a bar chart. It shows the filter, all records as long as they're active, the assigned to is empty, and the assignment group is OctoHelp's dispatch. I can change the type. So even though I said bar chart, because I only had bar and pie as a result option, I can change this to show other and pick list. Further, I can configure this to say that I am not going to group it by assignment group, and I want to add different columns to my display. I'm going to change the order here. And one of the things I'm going to add is something called reassignment count. That will tell me how many times an incident has been reassigned. When I click OK and run, it should generate my list. And when I use the scroll bar, we'll see how many of these tickets have actually been reassigned. So a few of them have been reassigned at least once. From this point, I can edit the title that was automatically generated for me. And then provide a more clever name than this. And when I'm done, I would click Save. And I now have 3 reports that I've created. And then I can add this to a dashboard if I wanted to. So you can export a report via a list to the report console. You could export this report to a PDF or a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet directly from the list view. Any questions on how to do that?
Yep, we have a question. Can I create a report to show tickets assigned to with the total time ticket was not closed or resolved? Then you need to
Um,
repeat that.
yeah, I can try that. So let's go back to the reports and let me just pick one of these existing ones, see if I can do it. All right, so the filter that I'm being asked to do, and let me change the view. So I created a copy of the report, so it's probably going to show up twice until I rename this. There. All right, so let me make sure that I have nothing set up. All right, so what was the request? It was to see how long it was before something was closed or how long ago something was closed.
Right, the total time, I guess the SLA, how long it takes for it to get resolved. So I guess a report of the number of tickets and the time frame it takes to get resolved and closed.
So
Yes,
duration.
yes, yes. So she confirmed it for the SLA. So yes, she wants to know how long does the average time it takes to close out and resolve a ticket.
Hmm, that's a good one.
That is a good one. Thank you, Paula.
I may not have her answer, but it's a good one. All right, so duration. No. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I know that I can try to create one that shows incidents that have been resolved after the SLA was breached or something like that. But I'd have to really think about how to create that particular report. So let me see, since this obviously was not rehearsed.
Out of the box.
um, let's see, SLA. Let's see. So we'll say, yeah, I'd have to think about it.
So,
I'm sure it's possible. That would be something that actually would be something that I would query our consultant because they may be able to help during the QT, the I'm sorry, QT, the KT, the knowledge transfer. But I can try to come up with a result. I just have to think about it because there's a
okay,
lot of moving parts with that.
okay. And Paula, we can follow up with you offline. To once we get how that process will look like. That's cool.
There are some reports that can be created that have time or length of time, and so those do exist. It's just a matter of thinking about how's the best way to approach that.
I think you're on the testing environment too, so I think that
I
might
am.
challenge you
Yeah,
as well, because the test environment doesn't have like a lot of tickets for us to use to test. But however,
it
we
has a
do
lot
have
of
a
abandoned tickets in there.
yeah, right, and so that wouldn't be an accurate, accurate view for you, Paula, to
Mhm.
show how you do it. So we'll follow up with you offline for that.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think that's all the questions. Do we have time for another poll? Okay, so I did close the last poll, so you guys can look at your results um, from the last poll that you took. So I'm going to put the next poll up for the report section. Just going to have a questions on reports and um, did you fairly understand the training in the course? So I'm just going to put
Oh, I'm not
that.
done. I'm not
Oh,
I'm
oh,
not fully done. I was going to cover the admin piece last, but you can
gotcha.
certainly do your poll now if you want, and then I'll cover the admin piece because there's probably no reason to pull that.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm gonna put the polls in, but we just got another question in the chat. You want me to read it off right now, Joseph, or you want to wait until
Sure.
after?
No, you
Okay.
can read it.
Can you show the export detail? So can you explain what you mean, Angela, when you say, can you show the export detail?
Oh, no, I know exactly what she
Oh, you
wants
know what
to
you
see.
okay.
At least, and if I'm wrong, then that's going to be embarrassing. But all right. So the export detail, what she's referring to is if I go to, and that's too many records. So let me narrow it down a little bit. Um, let's pick this group here. So I'm going to say show matching. Hopefully, okay. So there's 2 records. That actually won't be so bad. When I do an export detail, what's going to happen is it's going to save the report first, download, save, and the result is the first page is going to show the list. The second and so on after that are going to show the expanded view of each of those tickets. So detailed means here's my list and here's each record opened afterwards to show the detail of each of those tickets on this list. So I didn't want to show 1,000 records because it was going to show 1,000 expanded or detailed contents. So that's what a detailed report looks like. Does that answer the question?
Angela is just give us a thumbs up. Yep,
Okay,
she is
good deal.
confirmed.
So
So I'm going to
not embarrassed. I got it right.
no, you perfect. Perfect. So I'm going to add these questions in the chat. Um, and once the poll is closed, that's when we'll be able to see the actual results of the poll. And what I can do is actually share. Well, I'll wait until Joseph completes the session. But once we complete the session, I will share my screen so we can see the polls. Because right now you can only see your individual responses to the poll instead of everyone that actually completed the poll. So once we complete this session, I'll show everyone the results of the poll. Okay, go ahead, Joseph.
Okay. I was just ending the persona that I was impersonating so I can show the admin features. All right. So when I look at all reports as an administrator, I can pick any report on the list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually search for something called training, see if any reports come up. They don't. All right. So let's try all new report for training. This will work. What I have as a capability as an administrator is the ability to save this filter as a data source. I also have sharing capability where I can schedule, I can share, and I can publish. So we'll start with the sharing option. Whenever you create a report and you have the ability to share the report, you can define who can see it. You can specify that everybody sees it, but you may say that they have to have a specific role. Or you can pick users and groups, and then you would just type in the name of the group that will have access to this. So we can pick, let's pick someone else. You said Octo. I'll just pick a group here. So I can add groups to view this report. So now 2 different groups have access. I can schedule this report to be run on a regular basis by clicking on, and I'll go backwards a step here. From the sharing tab, clicking on schedule opens up schedule an email containing this report. This is the default name of the schedule, shows the report name, and I can define who will receive this report. So I can click on this button, which would be me, so I'm always going to receive it, or I can add other individuals. So I can pick, Jackie's not in there. I'm surprised. Okay. So pick anybody that I want. Now, if someone says, I don't want to receive it anymore, you can always come back to your schedule and you can remove the names of the individuals that don't want to get the report. So it's not a permanent list. I could even assign this to go to an entire group. So everyone within that group would receive the email with this report. We can also put, let's say, a director level, someone who is not defined in the system. You can send this report to their email address. So you don't have to be in the system. You could add someone else. Now you would define the frequency. The frequency is daily, weekly, monthly. So you can pick any one of these. If it's weekly, you pick the day of the week. If it's daily, you pick the time. If it's monthly, you pick the day of the month that you're running it. If it is, let's see, periodically, you can say how many days. You can say every 10 days, every 14 days, or whatever. Once, self-explanatory. And then you can specify a start and an end date for this report. So you can pick just about anything. I'll pick the 14th of the month, and I'm going to specify that it runs at 11. Now, I probably don't want to do that. I may say 2300 hours, so it's going to be at 11 p.m. I can make it conditional, and if you're a SQL script fan, you can write a SQL script for your conditions, or you can just click omit if no records, which means if no records appear in the report that's run at the time, no email will be sent. So create test, put in your email, and then you can define the type. So it can be a PDF, landscape, or PDF portrait, or a spreadsheet, or a CSV file. Most people don't check the zip output because zip files tend to get stripped from emails. So when you're done, you would just click submit. Before I do that, I want to make sure I'm the only person that would get this. So click submit. And now you have a checkbox next to the schedule option. Publish, and pay attention to what we see up at the top right here. We have 3 icons. When I click publish, a 4th icon will appear, and that is a link. That link, when clicked, essentially provides a link to this report. So I can send that link via Slack or Teams or Zoom or email or whatever media you use for communication. And when that person clicks that link, it will take them to the report. So as a result of clicking publish, I now have unpublish as an option. Now, what does this report look like when I return? We see a checkbox now under scheduled and a checkbox under published. So returning to this, if I wanted to change any of those features, I can just go back to sharing, and I can make that inactive by deselecting active. And I can unpublish it. Now, even though I did schedule it, it's still listed there. So the only thing to do, and I don't know how to, I guess I'd have to change. Oh no, okay, I get it. So the admin can change the schedule if they needed to, essentially. All right, so clicking save, and then returning to the list. At the very least, the publish shouldn't be there anymore. All right, finally, there is the data source. So let's create a, now, does the session end in a minute or do I have 30 minutes?
It It ends at 3:30, but I think you're fine. We
Okay.
can, yeah.
So, yeah, I'll do this relatively quickly. I'm just going to run a test report. I'm going to use a table. I'm going to pick incident. I want to show you how an administrator would create a data source, just so that you're aware of the what's involved. So I am going to leave type as a list and configure alone. What I wanted to do is show you that when I click on the filter and specify conditions, we'll say state is in progress and signed to is not empty. And let's say assignment group contains Octo. Let's see what we get as a result. Okay, so we have some records. Now, here's my filter. When I go to the save dropdown and specify save as a data source, it's going to take the conditions that I've added. State is in progress, assigned to is not empty, and assignment group contains Octo. And then I'm going to call this, and I need a naming convention so I can find these data sources easily. I'm going to use my initials JS underscore Octo in progress. And we'll say Octo INC in progress. When I click submit, what's going to happen in the future is when an individual is creating a report and they specify data source, they can type in the data source they've named or anybody's created, and you'll see that my default starting point is the filter state is in progress, assigned to is not empty, and assignment group contains Octo. Here's my results. Now I can further filter and create more conditions, but these conditions are not overwritten. They cannot be changed. That's a starting point for everybody who selects the data source. So the value in a data source is providing everybody with the same starting point, and then they can add their own little flavor to the report, whether it's that a priority is going to be critical or high, or maybe that the reassignment count is more than one, or whatever. But they don't have to keep creating reports with this every time. It's there for them. So that's the benefit of a data source and what it's for. So hopefully that explains a little bit better what data sources are for. And I just wanted to show that before we ended the session.
Thank you. That was pretty awesome. Thank you for facilitating the reports and dashboards and um, leaving it up for scenarios and you walking us through some how to create reports. Anyone have any other questions? It might not be on this topic, but just any general questions about ServiceNow that maybe we can help out. Okay, cool. So I did put a link in the chat for the polls. Just wanted to see if you guys can answer those 5 questions. And I'm going to share my screen to go over the polls, the results from the earlier polls. So I'm not sure if everyone can see my screen. Let me know. So the first question of the last poll, what does dashboards owned by me contain? So owned by me contain is where you can see all the dashboards that was created by you. So the correct answer is every dashboard is shared with me, and that is what owned by me contains in dashboard. So everyone who selected every dashboard or shared with me is correct. Let's go to the next one. What is the only requirement to create a dashboard? Um, Restrict roles, name of dashboard, group name, owner name. The correct answer was name of dashboard. Good job on everyone who selected that one. Can you add widgets to a dashboard? Yes or no? Yes, you can add widgets to a dashboard. Joseph was nice enough to show us an example of how that looks. So yes, thank you for everyone who got 100% on that. Can all users create a dashboard? So it looks like we got half, we got 50-50. And the answer is no. Um, wait, no. All creators can use a dashboard. Actually, this is supposed to be it's messed up. So all users can create a dashboard. It's the reports that they cannot do.
That's correct.
Yes, sorry. I had another question that it fixes this one. Next, last question is dashboards owned by the users can be shared um, by clicking the share button and group. And that is the correct answer within ServiceNow. By clicking the share button and group, you'll be able to share a dashboard with any assigned team and group. So that was the polls. I'm going to see where we are with the other polls and make sure that's done so we can look at the results of that one. Give me one second. So I'm gonna. So did you guys get that poll in the chat? If not, we know. Because I have to close the polls for us to see the results. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm closing the poll, and we should see the results. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so we have can a report be created and then select a group to be shared on the dashboard? I got this question from Ginger and I thought that was pretty cool that she asked that question. So I added that here after Joseph explained the answer and everybody got it right. Thank you, Ginger, for the question and thank you, Joseph, for the demonstration. Next question, how to set a report as a favorite. Submit an Octo Helps ticket, click the star icon next to a report to make it a favorite, save the report to your computer, click a star on the web browser. Everyone got it correct. It is click the star next to the report to make it your favorite. Awesome job, guys. Are permissions needed to share create a report? Yes. This is awesome because that is I think that is the difference between the reports and dashboards. Reporting, you do need permissions, certain permissions to create and share, but for dashboards, you do not. So I want to make that clear. Question, if a report is created that needs to be run on a regular basis, what should you do? Manually pull the report every day? No, that's more work, right? Create a calendar to schedule when the report needs to be run? Even more work. Submit a Octo Helps tickets? No need. The last and the right answer is set up to schedule a report to be ran. In ServiceNow, you can set up to have a report to be run on a frequent basis based on your operations in your program. Thank you guys for all getting that. Last question: what are the exporting formats for reports? Excel, CSV, JSON, and PDF. Everyone got on with that. Thank you for your answers and participating in the polls. So before we close up, I do want to mention some things. I do want to share that we have a survey that we would like to for everyone to participate in, and this is how we get our content for our next trainings, our next topics, our next resource materials to help you guys through ServiceNow and how to navigate through it. Your feedback is valuable to us to conduct these trainings. So I'm going to put the survey in the chat, and also I think in within the Teams channel, you can also see the form through there. So I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you go here on the left-hand corner to Teams, click there, And everybody should be a part of the ServiceNow channel training. So if you go to ServiceNow, under the ServiceNow training here, click that. If you go towards the top and you have a different categories here, you can select post files. I want you to select here under two, fill the ServiceNow brag belt session survey form. This is where you can submit the form right here under Teams. You don't have to get a link. You can submit the form right here and there, and I will get the results just as if you was to get it through email or team chat. So there's a different several ways that you can submit the form. You could do it through the channel, or I will provide the link within the chat where you guys can get that. Do we have any other questions before we end this brown bag for today? All right. I want to thank you guys for joining. Again, we have sessions next week. Next week will be using Workspace. We're going to do another deep dive into Workspace, kind of understanding how you can utilize the best practices. And we have a session scheduled up until December 7th. So please register. I'm going to be sending out more reminders throughout the week so you can register. You can register for all the sessions at the same time. So if you want to attend all the sessions, you can click in and you will get an invite, automatic invite to all of those sessions, okay? So if anyone have any questions, just let me know. The chat will still be open for questions, anything like that. Anybody that I need to follow up with, if you can ping me in a private chat, please let me know because it's hard to remember who I need to follow up with. But I think everything is great, and thank you all for joining. Take care.
Much,
Bye.
everybody. Have a good rest of the day.